Hey everyone! Columbina's official and definitive kit has finally been released. And look, she's the kind of character that makes you drop everything and sit down to carefully read every single line. In this video, we'll talk about everything Columbina does and doesn't do, her signature weapon, which team she'll fit into, and whether she's worth it for you. The first thing that stands out is that, contrary to some early leaks, Columbina can indeed enable lunar reactions by herself. This is great news if you skipped all the nod cry banners and were just waiting for Columbina. You'll still have full access to the mechanic with her. She enables all 3 lunar reactions for your team, meaning when your team activates electrocharged, bloom, or hydrocrystallization, she automatically converts everything into lunar electrocharged, lunar bloom, and lunar crystallization. Additionally, she increases the base damage of these lunar reactions based on her own max HP, up to a limit of 7% from this effect. Buffing the base damage of reactions is one of the strongest ways to scale this type of team. We also finally have confirmation of lunar crystallization, the new reaction that arrives with Columbina's kit. It only works with Hydro and Geo. It's not like regular crystallization where you react Geo with practically any element. When this reaction happens, 3 lunar wards appear near the enemy, functioning as small Geo constructs. Every 3 activations of lunar crystallization, these wards resonate and deal AoE Geo damage. This damage can crit in scales with the characters who applied the elements in the reaction. So, if you're already familiar with how other lunar reactions normally scale, the logic here should follow a very similar path. Now let's dive into Columbina's actual kit. Her normal attacks are simple Hydro strikes. Nothing too special, but her charged attack has an important detail. In standard mode, she only deals AoE Hydro damage, but if you have at least one Verdant Dew available, the charged attack is replaced by a special attack with no stamina cost. This attack consumes 1 Verdant Dew and hits 3 times with AoE Dendro damage, and this damage is treated as Lunar Bloom reaction damage. So depending on the team composition, she herself can apply instances of Dendro and Lunar Bloom through her kit, which is quite different from what we expect from a typical Hydro character. For her elemental skill, Columbina summons a gravitational ripple, which works like a mix between Nilu's aura and Lauma's, continuously following the active character and dealing AoE Hydro damage all the time. This makes Columbina's Hydro application very comfortable and consistent because you don't need to worry about enemies leaving a fixed area on the ground, like with Kokomi's application, for example. On top of all this, while team allies are activating lunar reactions or dealing lunar reaction damage, she gains the New Moon's Omen effect for 2 seconds and accumulates 20 gravity every 2 seconds, up to a maximum of 60 stacks. When gravity reaches this limit, the skill activates Tidal Interference, which is an extra damage burst based on whichever lunar reaction dealt the most damage in the team, and this Tidal Interference changes behavior depending on the reaction. The idea is very straightforward. The more lunar reactions your team activates, the more extra instances of lunar reaction damage she triggers off-field. Columbina not only buffs lunar reactions, but also amplifies the amount of lunar reactions the team causes, and this seems very strong to me. Moving to Columbina's elemental burst, this part is pretty simple. Columbina creates a domain that lasts 20 seconds, deals AoE Hydro damage, and buffs the lunar reactions of all allies inside the area. We don't have the exact percentage of this buff yet, but the most consistent leak suggests it will be around 50%. However, the ultimate's buffs don't stop there. Combining with a passive we'll see later, Columbina's ultimate buffs lunar reactions even further. Now that we've gone through all of Columbina's skills, let's finally talk about her passives. Her first passive further amplifies Columbina's role as an off-field sub-DPS. Every time Tidal Interference is activated, and if you don't remember what that is, it's that skill effect that activates when you reach 60 gravity stacks. Columbina gains 5% crit rate for 10 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, meaning up to 15% crit rate practically for free. Since she already gains crit rate naturally as she levels up, this makes building her much easier, without needing to search for as much crit rate in artifacts. Now, Columbina's second passive is related to her ultimate. When the team is inside the domain created by the ultimate, everyone gains an effect based on the lunar reaction they performed. If the reaction is lunar electrocharged, the passive reduces the storm cloud attack intervals by 0.5 seconds, so the clouds hit more times throughout the rotation. If it's lunar bloom, it grants 1 extra Verdant Dew, with a maximum of 3 every 18 seconds. This specific effect will be very interesting in Nefer compositions, and in compositions where Columbina uses her charged attack. And finally, if it's lunar crystallization, each resonating lunar ward gains a 33% chance to attack again, which becomes a direct damage increase when you're constantly activating this reaction. As standard, Columbina has an exploration passive that's quite different from all previous ones. While you're in Nod Cry, if a team member dies, Columbina revives that character and heals based on her friendship level, with a 100-second cooldown. It's not something that will change your life, but it will certainly help in some situations. We've finished Columbina's passives, and now let's talk about her constellations. The constellations follow the same idea and direction as her base kit, instead of turning everything upside down. The first constellation makes the elemental skill immediately activate a tidal interference, and makes tidal interference cause extra effects beyond the passive effects, depending on the dominant lunar reaction in your team. In electro-charged comps, it restores energy to the on-field character. In bloom comps, it gives interruption resistance for a few seconds. And in crystallization comps, it creates a shield based on Columbina's max HP, with extra effectiveness against Hydro. Additionally, it also grants a 3% bonus to lunar reaction damage for allies through elevation, a type of multiplier that's stronger than a simple common damage bonus. At C2, she increases the gravity accumulation speed, and when tidal interference is activated, she gains a 30% max HP buff. Additionally, this same buff starts converting her HP into attributes for the active character, such as attack, elemental mastery, or defense, depending on which lunar reaction is dominating the team. C4 returns energy to Columbina herself when tidal interference is used, and increases the damage of this effect based on Columbina's max HP, plus it gives a bit more lunar reaction damage to the team, also based on Columbina's max HP. At C6, when you're inside the domain created by the ultimate and trigger an elemental reaction, Columbina buffs the crit damage of the corresponding element by 80%, and it also has that bonus similar to C1, but this time it's 5% instead of 3%. All of this makes Columbina increasingly stronger and more supportive at the same time, but always within the same identity as a full lunar reaction unit. In practice, these constellations should work like most supports such as Farina and Nahida, where it will still be more worthwhile to invest in the main DPS's constellations first, and leave hers as a luxury for those who really love the character and the mechanic. Well, that's Columbina's complete kit. What did you think? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's finish with the last thing about Columbina, her signature weapon. Right from the start, Columbina gains 88.2% crit damage just from the weapon's secondary stat. The passive increases Columbina's HP by 10%, and on top of that, every time Columbina triggers a lunar reaction or deals lunar reaction damage, she restores 12 energy and gains a buff that increases her HP by an additional 12%, and crit damage of lunar reactions by 60%. This weapon is a gigantic buff for Columbina herself, but there's no team buff on the weapon. Everything is centered on fixing her energy recharge and making her own numbers as high as possible. At the end of the day, Columbina is a very niche character. She's not trying to be the universal Hydro support that fits into any team in the game. Like Farina, she was designed to be played within lunar reactions, applying Hydro to enable the reactions, increasing reaction damage, and still putting a very large volume of off-field damage on top of that. For those who like this team style, or were already looking to build a strong lunar reaction team, the news is excellent. If your carry doesn't care about this and is playing something else entirely, she won't shine as much. Well, that's it for today's video. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on Columbina's kit, if you plan to get her, and what level of investment. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.